What is it you would be trying to do on climate change? What is it you would be trying to prevent if you were leading the United States at the conference?
Well, first of all, I think one of the dumbest statements I've ever heard in politics, in the history of politics as I know it, was Obama's statement that our number one problem is global warming, okay? When we have large groups of people that want to blow up every one of our cities, that want to destroy our country, that want to kill our people, and he's worried about global warming. I think it's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
Having 2 cars, 3 cars in your family and a television set in every room and living that sort of life that people live in developed countries and even in emerging economies now has a cost to it. The cost is climate change.
And the time is running out. Time is running out. We've got 10, most of the scientists say we have 10 years to reduce our emissions by 90%. We've got to keep 80% of the fossil fuels in the ground. That's a massive shift in our ways of life.
It is going to affect the way we do everything. It is going to affect the way we transport ourselves. It's going to affect what we eat, when we eat. It's going to affect how we heat, cool our homes. It's going to affect how we build our homes. It's going to affect certainly how we produce our food. It's going to affect practically every human endeavor.
If you're in a room of 6 people just making a normal decision, it takes a long time. So imagine a global decision that's, going to have an impact for the next 10, 20, 30 plus years.
La spécificité de cette conférence, c'est qu'il faut qu'il n'y ait pas un seul pays qui dise non. C'est là la difficulté extraordinaire. Quand je présente l'accord final, il faut que tout le monde dise oui. Même le plus petit pays, s'il dit non, ça s'arrête.
If we failed in Paris, then the whole world is looking at a globally catastrophic situation, which will not spare anybody. It will hit the rich countries. New York will be affected, Berlin will be affected, London will be affected. It will affect everybody.
Coming one day under one roof, under your very good protection. I want to thank you for the very special effort that is going to be made on Monday, but then throughout the entire 2 weeks. No, Kevin, that's not fair. Wait a minute. Now.
Mesdames et messieurs, chers amis, j'ai le grand plaisir d'inviter la secrétaire exécutive, Madame Christiana Figueres, à prononcer son allocution. Madame la secrétaire exécutive, vous avez la parole.
Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, bonjour. Paris must be where the world unites as one. Paris must be where we show that we are capable of standing in solidarity with one another. It is up to you. You have the responsibility to finalize a global climate change agreement that responds to the demands of science and the urgency of the challenge. Dear friends, never before has a responsibility so great been in the hands of so few. If you lift your gaze, you see that the climate change negotiation is the first time that humanity is having to answer the question, are we going to continue to work out of nation-state interests, governance, and decision boundaries? Or are we actually going to reach beyond nation states into a global collaboration space?
We like your mobile office, sir. Stuart from Reuters.
Hi, Stuart. How are you? Emily, how are you?
We always hear that Bangladesh is the most affected country. How does that look on the ground?
Well, Bangladesh has been known to be one of the most vulnerable countries for quite a few years now. By any measure that you might want to take, Bangladesh comes up in the first three countries of being vulnerable to floods, cyclones, even droughts on occasion. Inevitably and unfortunately, there will be millions of people, potentially more than 10 million people, who will no longer be able to continue living where they are in the coastal areas in particular.
Are you afraid of what the future of Bangladesh will look like if the deal isn't reached?
I'm afraid for the world. So I'm worried about how good an agreement, how ambitious an agreement are we going to have. And there's a very clear indicator between what we, and when I say we, I mean the vulnerable people and the vulnerable countries, see as good versus what we see as not good enough. If we agree a 2-degree target, which is what we have at the moment, we call that not good enough because it only protects the rich and the middle class living on the planet, and it doesn't protect the poorest. That's why we are so strong about the 1.5-degree goal. It's the right thing to do. It may be very difficult to do, but it's not impossible to do. And we want the leaders to do the right thing.
Oh, hang on, what was the quote that you said again? The difference between...
I can never repeat myself
Oh, it was really
accurately.
good. The difference between...
protecting all or some.
Protecting all or some.
We're having had...
Mein Name ist Helmut Hojewski. Ich bin vom österreichischen Umweltministerium. Meine Rolle hier ist der Delegationsleiter der Beamtendelegation. Und zu Hause im Ministerium bin ich der Abteilungsleiter für Klimaschutz und Lufterhaltung im Umweltministerium. Das Ergebnis der Verhandlungen muss sein, einen sauberen Text ohne jegliche Square Brackets zu haben. Das sind Textteile, die umstritten sind, wo es also verschiedene Optionen gibt, wo eine Vertragspartei sagt, ich möchte hier Shell stehen haben, jemand anderer sagt should, darauf sagt die andere wieder, ich möchte aber Shell, Also wir machen ein Square Bracket um dein Should herum und die anderen sagen, wir machen ein Square Bracket um dein Shall herum. Also so sind alle Optionen in einem Text drinnen. Also ein Text ist erst fertig, wenn er keine sogenannten Square Brackets hat. Also wenn alles ausgeräumt ist. Und da ist noch ein weiter Weg hin.
The developed countries do not like the word shall. Shall means the strongest obligation. They have to do it or they're supposed to do it. They prefer words like may, which gives them the option. They may or may not. They sometimes compromise with the word should. Should is less binding than shall. It is something that we urge countries to do, but countries may or may not do them. But even that is fairly weak legally binding agreement. A global agreement is not like national law. You don't have a police force that goes and enforces people who don't abide by the law. A global agreement is still voluntary even if they say shall.
It's a very difficult task that we have to capture this complex agreement in text. And one of the things we fear is that we will go into the second week with too many options on too many issues for political decision, and the task will be overwhelming, and that this will increase the risk of a short agreement with modest outcomes on all issues.
Is it going to be as transformative as we need? Because an agreement that only points toward gradual shifting of energy systems, of deforestation rates, of transportation, of everything else that contributes to climate change, only a gradual shift is not going to do it.
They have very good negotiators who are seconded to the Ministry of Petroleum to negotiate from Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco is the biggest oil-producing company in the whole world. They are the ones who send negotiators from Saudi Arabia.
I have the honor of speaking on behalf of the 22 Arab countries. Mr. President, we are working in a very delicate process. We want to be guided by the proven science. When we set a goal for our efforts as governments for this agreement, it has to be substantiated with proven science, and we will all work together to achieve the scientific goal and no other goal, Mr. President, be it political or any other goals that one might think of. Mr. President, we look forward to your guidance. The Arab group is ready to engage in good faith, and we will be here to support a very successful agreement. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.
People who benefit from a system don't want to change the system. Rich countries have benefited from fossil fuels. Fossil fuel producing countries have benefited. They don't want change. They've just come out with a statement saying they want action, but that's a totally false statement. You see, they know how to play the game. They know how to say the right things, but then prevent actions from happening. And that's what one of the biggest problems that we have in the negotiations.
Okay. Right now we're going to move to remarks from one of my favorite people, Ambassador Jumeau from the Seychelles. He's the Ambassador for Climate Change and Small Island Developing States Issues. I will come back a little after he's finished.
Islands cannot afford to wait for others. Time is a luxury we cannot afford because of the challenges we face.
When the sea level rises, people think the islands will disappear, put them in a boat, put them in Australia, problem gone. No, the problem won't be gone. Because when the islands go under, every beach in the world, to a certain extent, more or less, is going to go under. It is not going to happen just as if it's happening on Mars. When you talk of islands, this is what you think of, right? It's a 4 or 5-star tourism resort. And this is what climate change is doing to it. And in Seychelles, the biggest problem we're having now is coastal erosion, short-term problem. Everywhere you go in Seychelles now, you see this. This is coastal erosion. The beach used to be over there. They've lost all that land. You can see the trees just collapsing into the ocean. It's beautiful, but it's a sign of death. And now they even use it in their advertising. Instead of using it to scare tourists away, they're using it as an attraction. But those of us who know that is the sign of death, right? It's a sign of the death of an island. I will show you an island which will eventually disappear. This is one of the atolls we will lose to sea level rise. It will go eventually.
In my youth, I actually did quite a bit of research and work in Samoa, and fell in love with a beautiful island which had the most beautiful singing I have ever heard. And that contrasts quite remarkably with the Samoa that I saw last year. A Samoa that is still a beautiful island, but that is in serious threat. This is real human pain. I don't know how people can disassociate themselves from this pain and just talk about it in a cold manner.
Call next on Australia, please.
Together, we have generated a text that holds within it the opportunity to conclude an ambitious and credible Paris Agreement that can establish a strategy to keep global temperature rise below 2 degrees. Let us be clear. We will not accept a minimalist outcome that leaves all the details to be decided after Paris. We need ambition and clarity here and now. My name is Peter Woolcott, and I'm the Australian Ambassador for the Environment. We have a team of something like 30 negotiators here. And we are a major mining nation. We've always been a major exporter of coal. I think we're the second largest exporter of coal in the world. If we were to stop exporting coal in Australia, that would not make, in our view, any difference to the state of emissions in the world. It may even exacerbate them because Australian coal is high quality. And our Prime Minister has said, if we stopped exporting coal, it doesn't mean coal isn't going to be used. There's actually a moral argument as well for alleviating poverty and the role that coal will still play in that. Coal is still used extensively particularly in our part of the world and in Africa. Still, coal remains the cheapest, in those parts of the world, the cheapest source of energy and power, and that means the fastest way towards economic development and growth for them. So coal is, again, it's a very complex issue. You can't be too simplistic about coal.
Can also assume that action area That one down there where the crowd is a D40. The D40, the crowd control over there.
We think markets can play a very important role in increasing ambition and believe it's appropriate that the agreement send a strong signal to support this. There is a facilitation underway on this, so I don't think we need a separate drafting group, but it most certainly must be included. And then on the long-term temperature goal, 2.1A, we support a goal of, quote, well below 2 degrees.
As you are aware, Mr. President, here in the UNFCCC, we have conducted an extensive assessment of the science related to 1.5 degrees Celsius. And this process has concluded that 2 degrees Celsius is just too high, and that 1.5 degrees is both technically and economically feasible.
On 1.5, for small island states, holding the increase in temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees is a matter of survival. As it is for so many countries in this room, Mr. President, would it have been better for all of us, for future generations, to have text that expresses the urgency of actions to hold temperature rise to below 1.5 degrees? Absolutely.
We wish we can be as optimistic as our co-chairs who were heading the ambition group. I really think we need to have much more discussions with regard to Article 2, Paragraph 1A. I don't think we really do have consensus there. Or in Article 3.1, we are really far away from consensus, Mr. President, and I think we really need to have much more discussions in these areas.
We, small island developing states, we see it every day. Some of us, we are so small that we hear the wind blow from the east across to the west. Some of us are so small that when rain comes, we get frightened and we anticipate that danger could lie ahead for us. The day-to-day evidence of ordinary citizens that live in small island developing states cannot be denied. The fact is, sir, that we know because we watch our beaches disappear, we watch our homes washed away, we watch our dreams washed away, and we certainly do not want to watch our lives washed away.
When I first joined the process, I was a very fresh student. And I was a bit disappointed that it wasn't all about saving the earth and the planet. And I mean, I was young and naive, and it was more, and rightfully so, it is about kind of national interest, and there is a lot of economics involved, a lot of politics involved. But that was my initial, you know, this was 5 years ago, but that was my initial kind of being shocked. But now I'm over that, it's fine. Bahrain was the first country in the Gulf to discover oil. So we kind of pioneered that whole movement, and then we've benefited greatly from this resource. But it's challenging because we don't even have the awareness yet, as much as I would like there to be, on climate change. It's very difficult to, you know, be here with a lot of people who know exactly what's going on and then take it back home and try and give the same messages back home.
Haiyan that year was the 21st typhoon to hit Philippines. 20 typhoons had already hit, and nobody knew about them because they get the warning, they go to the shelters, the typhoon comes, there's a lot of wind and rain and damage, and then it goes away and people go back to normal. Haiyan, similarly, they got the warnings, they went to the shelters, they died in the shelters collapsed. So Haiyan was not a normal typhoon, it was a super typhoon. Haiyan hit the Philippines the day before the Warsaw COP. And Liep Sano, the chief Philippines negotiator, made a statement, a very emotional statement.
I see Philippines asking for the floor, so please, floor is yours.
Mr. President, my country is being tested by this hailstorm called Super Typhoon Haiyan. Mr. President, we remain uncertain as to the full extent of the damage. The initial assessment showed that Haiyan left a wake of massive destruction that is unprecedented, unthinkable. Mr. President, I speak for my delegation, but I speak for the countless people who will no longer be able to speak for themselves. Now, Mr. President, if you will allow me, Super Typhoon Haiyan made landfall in my own family's hometown. And the devastation is staggering. I struggle to find words even for the images that we see on the news coverage. And I struggle to find words to describe how I feel about the losses. Up to this hour, I agonize, waiting for word to the fate of my very own relatives. My own brother has communicated to us and he had survived. In the last 2 days, he has been gathering bodies of the dead with his own 2 hands. He is very hungry and weary as food supplies find it difficult to arrive in that hardest hit area. In solidarity with my countrymen who are struggling to find food back home, I will now commence a voluntary fasting for the climate. This means I will voluntarily refrain from eating food during this COP until a meaningful outcome is in sight, until we see real ambition on climate action. Mr. President, what my country is going through is madness. The climate crisis is madness. Mr. President, we can stop this madness right here in Warsaw.
Said he's going on a fast. He's going to not eat for the next 2 weeks. Many of us fasted with him. That's how we got the Warsaw International Mechanism in the COP. You know, for 19 years, the rich countries prevented us from talking about loss and damage. But we managed to get it done because we were united till the very end. We said we will not agree to anything in Warsaw. We go home, Warsaw is a failure, unless you give us this. And in the end, they blinked. They gave it to us. It's the only time we've got something out of them.
At least part of the advice may available na solution. Mas madali na.
Kung late lang.
Love pink line.
Ito yan.
Serve for us. After Warsaw, without me knowing the full reason behind it, I was taken out of the Philippine delegation. So it's not as if I walked away from the process. I was taken out. And if I was taken out because I have been vocal about rich nations having to take responsibility and about the fossil fuel industry being the biggest problem that stands in the way, that should give me a lot of pride to be taken out. Because climate change is a battle that will not be won or lost in the conference halls here.
Secretary of the UN Framework Convention, Christiana?
Thank you very much, my good friend Salemon, and Honorable President Aquino, distinguished ministers. May I raise a voice of concern? I do not see the countries working in an articulated and coordinated fashion for this Paris Agreement. This is an urgent matter, but it is the countries around this table and many others outside that are going to determine whether we have an ambitious agreement or whether we just have an agreement. The danger is not to aim too high and fail. The danger is to aim too low and only do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christiana, for your words and your continued support to the vulnerable countries. We very much appreciate it. It was agreed that all countries would now take action. And so the idea of the INDC, the intended nationally determined contributions, came up. And every country started developing their own.
Chaque pays devait faire un plan pour lui-même en disant voilà ce que je vais faire dans les années 2025-2030 pour économiser, pour diminuer les émissions de gaz à effet de serre. Donc ça, c'est un engagement de chaque pays.
The problem with this voluntary action is that when you add it up, it's not enough. Collectively, it doesn't take us to 2 degrees, it takes us to maybe just under 3 degrees. And so if we want to go to 1.5 degrees, then we have to ramp it up. Every country has to do much more than they promised.
I've always said the climate change negotiations stopped being about climate change a long time ago. It's about economy, it's about interests, it's about who pays for your election campaign.
I know that some countries maybe have no seat, and therefore I've been told that there were some places here where you can have chairs, and anyway there is a mic which can be used here. We are sorry for that, but we have to do with it. Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, short speeches, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are of the view that it should read as follows. Hold the increase in the global average temperature to below 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial levels, full stop. So basically what we've done, we've just deleted the following phrase. Parties aim to reach the peaking of greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible. That should be deleted. And again, the word shall would like to see may in that article. With that, Mr. President, I should thank you.
Thank you.
We are very concerned at long interventions calling for wholesale deletions. I bring these perspectives now when we have been spending weeks and weeks and weeks negotiating this language. If we delete, we will end up with nothing and disappoint the rightful expectations of the vulnerable people of the world. If there is now a call to emasculate the President's text, we cannot go along with that. The substance must remain. Let's resolve only the outstanding issues and move ahead with the President's text. Thank you, sir.
Well, Mr. President, we appreciate your leadership enormously. This agreement, I have to tell you, my friends, this is a monument to differentiation. This is the single most differentiated agreement I've ever seen in my life because of the 186 voluntary, nationally determined plans. And I hope we'll look very carefully and not get hung up over word for word that don't really have an impact. I mean, I'll give you an example. All parties should strive to formulate and communicate long-term low greenhouse gas emission development strategies. Now it's been recommended that that be deleted. I found it really hard to understand how the word strive threatens anybody. And I have to say to my friends, and we've been meeting with some of them very closely in the last couple of days, we can't afford, in the hours we have left and in the time we have, and given the spirit with which we've all come here, to nitpick every single word of this agreement. I don't believe that's where we are. Thank you, Mr. President.
My schedule is this one. Today, Friday, I will try to pull the pieces together, and I will consult the different groups during the day, not right now, but during the day. And I will be in a position to present a text, which will be the final text, tomorrow. Thank you very much.
J'invite maintenant la COP à adopter le projet de décision intitulé Accord de Paris qui figure dans le document. Je regarde la salle, je vois que la réaction est positive, je n'entends pas d'objection. L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
This agreement gives foreign bureaucrats control over how much our energy and how much we use right here in America. So foreign bureaucrats are going to be controlling what we're using and what we're doing on our land in our country. No way. We're going to cancel the Paris Climate Agreement and stop all payments of the United States tax dollars to UN global warming programs.